All right. So I'm not a doctor. If you want medical advice, seek a doctor. Don't listen to me. I'm an idiot. None of this is medical advice. Talk to a professional. So with that said, I'm going to go over my 10 commandments for essentially building your bodybuilding cycle. All right. So my 10 commandments for cycle building. So first is consider your budget. Second would be HGH usage. Third is how much estrogen do you produce. Next would be how do you pick which ester you want to use. Fifth is should you use orals. Sixth is individual tolerances to compounds. Seventh would be dealing with sides. Eighth is how advanced of a trainee you are. Ninth is taking considerations of your metabolism. And 10th, I'll cover insulin use. So budget's pretty simple. If you can't afford it, you shouldn't do it. It's easy for somebody to say, take like a gram of test and half a gram of Primo, but if you're buying from an underground lab here in Canada, a gram of Primo will run you about $100. So if you're running a 16-week cycle, that is $800. So some people buy their supplements all at once, others week by week. If you need to do week by week or bi-weekly when you get paid, just pick some cheaper supplements. There's lots. Next, and this will be a long one, would be HGH usage. Always, and I mean always, take HGH. Consider number one if you can afford it. Endogenous HGH production peaks during puberty at 150 micrograms per kilogram per day. It starts to decrease between the ages of 25 to 30. It reaches 25 milligrams or micrograms per kilogram per day at the age of 55. So if you like milligrams, so let's say puberty for 100 kilo, which is just a massive kid, is 15 milligrams, and 1 milligram is equivalent to 3 IUs. So a 100 kilo kid in puberty is producing 45 IUs a day. So let's take an adult that's 100 kilos at age 55. They produce 2.5 milligrams, which is equivalent to 7 IUs a day. So these numbers seemed high to me. So I checked some pharma GH recommended dosing. So remember that these are replacement dosages. So if you look at the second row, you can see adult growth hormone deficiency. So they want you to take 0.15 to 0.3 milligrams per day of genotropin. And they want you to do that in 6 to 7 doses. That is a lot of doses. So according to the pharmaceutical company, at least genotropin, whoever produces it, the adult replacement dose is between 3 and 6 IUs, assuming 6 doses. So why 2 IU for fat loss? There's no difference in fatty-free acid content over, for simplicity, 2 IUs. It's actually like 1.35 or something. But let's just say 2 IUs. So if you look at the plot on the right, plot A, the number 3 and 6 are 3 micrograms per kilogram and 6 micrograms per kilogram. And you can see that fatty-free acid content is no different between the two. So taking more HGH than 2 IUs at one point in time doesn't actually help you lose any more fat. So depending on your weight and age, it's pointless to take 2 to 4 IUs a day, especially if you're 25, 30, 40. Like if a 50-year-old's producing like 7, if you're 100 kilos, or, a replacement dosage is considered somewhere in the range of 5 to 6, taking 2 to 4 IUs a day, you're more or less wasting money, especially if you take it in 2 shots because you're shutting down your own endogenous production. So even 6 seems like a replacement dose. So my opinion is 8 IU per day or above. I like 18 IU PM, like before bed when bulking, 2 IUs every 6 hours during the day when cutting, and 18 IU PM before bed when cutting. According to Kurt, I have no reference for this, 18 IU in one bolus causes permanent hyperplasia, which is just permanent muscle growth. So if you can afford it, take a fair quantity of growth hormone. I'd say 8+. My favorite's 18. Next is estrogen production. Primo and boldenone have metabolites that act as aromatase inhibitors. So if you're a low aromatizer like me, you can't take much of either. without a compound like nandrolone, which upregulates estrogen production. Or you're also like me, you have to inject estrogen if you don't want to take nandrolone. If you're a high aromatizer, you can run test plus DHT or test plus bold in larger quantities. So I've never actually taken more than 140 milligrams a week of boldenone or 300 milligrams a week of primo without nandrolone. I just can't. Even that just tanks my estrogen to 3 to 6. Ester Choice. So I'm a water buffalo. So I prefer short esters because they cause less water retention. Long esters cause more water retention. So I almost exclusively run short esters. If you don't retain much water, there's not much point in running a short ester unless you like stabbing yourself. If you inject frequently, short esters won't have more sides. Sides are typically caused by hormonal fluctuations. So if you're injecting something like propionate every other day, you're going to get side effects. So individual tolerances. This confuses me. If someone gets bad sides from a compound, don't use it, except HGH. In that case, lower the dose and titrate up. You always take HGH, always, if you have the money. If you don't get any results from a compound, don't use it. If you react very well to a compound, use it frequently. So for example, I get much better results out of a very small amount of boldenone or a fairly large amount of boldenone with nandrolone than I would with primo. So I pretty much never use primo. So dealing with sides, the first rule is inject more frequently. If you need to take half the pharmacy to run a compound, don't run it. Like if you're taking like 100 milligrams of anadrol, and your BP is way too high, you're taking telemarcin or any other ARB or blood pressure meds, just stop taking it. Like odds are you're not going to be a pro bodybuilder. So don't run stuff that makes you feel like shit, and don't run stuff that destroys your health. For example, if you get a limp noodle on nandrolone or tren, don't run them. There's exceptions for tren and contrast prep, but most people are probably never going to compete. And frankly, you have no sex drive anyways. How advanced you are. So if you're just starting out, or you're just small like me, just start with test. Titrate test up until you can't handle it. I can take a fairly large quantity of test. I've been up to a gram a week before, and I took no AI. My estrogen was actually low. So after you've titrated test up as high as you can add a second compound. If you're a low estrogen converter, you really have no choice other than nandrolone or to inject estrogen. But injecting estrogen sucks because all the esters last forever and it takes forever to get in your system. So if you go too high or too low, you're going to have sides for a couple weeks. If you are a normal or a high estrogen converter, just add DHT or boldenone. Once you're advanced, you can combine genomic and non-genomic compounds. For example, test is genomic and non-genomic. Tren is just tren. It does a phenomenal job of going within the androgen receptor. And then anadrol or D-bol or non-genomic compounds. I'll make a video on the non-genomic compounds and how they work in, I don't know, a few weeks, I'm guessing. So my current rebound, I'm just running 700 tests a week. It's your metabolism. So I have 2 slides for this. Fast metabolism. So off season, no tren, no stems, nothing that ups your metabolism. So no SLU, no miraburgon. If you really need appetite, you can take boldenone or trustolone. I don't find they affect mine at all, but some people claim they do. If you are even a moderate to high converter, if you take trustolone, you will get gyno. Stay away from MK677. It is just a shitty drug. It's equivalent to maybe 2 IUs of HGH, and you will be extremely bloated and your blood sugar will go through the roof. Doing prep with a fast metabolism is a much better deal. Instead of doing more cardio, you can just take more stems. So you just cleanse the ECA stack, Yomenhide, SLU, miraburgon, whatever weird fat burners you want to try. Buy them, inject them, swallow them, but don't because drugs are bad. If you have a slow metabolism, Off season, you don't need tren unless you're advanced. I believe it's liver and kidney toxicity is overblown. Looking at my own blood work. Sims seem pointless to me unless you're really hungry. Avoid bold or trust if they increase your appetite, and as always, stay away from MK677. On prep, fat burners increase your TDEE or resting metabolic rate. Honestly, you're better off doing more cardio than taking more fat burners. So, for example, this past week I ate 4,800 calories a day on average, and I am down weight from before peak week by 7 pounds. So let's say I eat 500,000 calories and I add Clen. Clen can get you upwards to a 10% increase in your metabolism. So just taking one pill, I lose a pound a week. Let's say you have a 2,000 calorie gain, so you add Clen. With that same 10% increase in metabolism, you're not even getting a half pound a week. And you're going to eventually have to come off of it. So whether or not that's worth it is up to you. You can do more cardio or you can take more stims. My personal preference is I just take more stims. For me to burn an additional 500 calories doing cardio would take forever. Insulin. Unless you're pounding food and not doing cardio, you don't need it, in my opinion. You can either do 10-minute walks after every meal, or you combine that with berberine plus piperine, I probably pronounced that wrong, and or metformin. If you do at least the 10-minute walks after every meal, I found for me makes the biggest difference. I haven't taken berberine or metformin in a long time. So in my experience, just the 10-minute walks, my blood sugar is fine, and I pound carbs. Don't take insulin dosages of pro bodybuilders. Take the dose related to the amount of carbs you eat. So I'm very cautious and I start at 1 IU per 20 grams of carbs. And when I say carbs, I mean net carbs, so you subtract the fiber. Most start at 1 IU per 10 grams of carbs. If I do take it, which is rarely, it's fast-acting pre- and post-workout, and that's it. I like Fiasp. It's actually designed to be similar to your natural insulin production. Humalog's my next choice. In the past, I've had blood sugar issues because I sat on my ass and did nothing, and I used Lantus. Eventually, I built up to needing about 120 IUs a day. I was not quite 200 pounds, and I was eating an absurd amount of food. Mind you, a lot of that was bloat, because if you think about it, I was on GH, and because you're always on GH, and I was taking 120 IUs of Lantus. And I don't know if you've ever taken Lantus, but it gives me an enormous amount of bloat. If you need other sources of info, Paul and Kurt have an e-course on PEDs. Paul and Kurt both have their respective forums. Ryan Root, I guess he's CEO of Hormones For Me, also has his own YouTube channel in which he covers lots of information on steroids. And that is the end.